Tonight, so let's call the meeting to order. Declaration of quorum, public comment. Don't see any public here. Consider approval of the minutes. I sent in a few changes on email. Anybody have any further changes? A motion to approve as amended? Motion to approve as amended. Sylvia move. I can't talk. There a second? Sam seconds. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Jennifer.
Aye.
Yep, thank you. Great. Treasurer's report. Sylvia, take it away.
Okay, so I believe there's a printout if you didn't get a chance to look at the email that was sent out earlier today. And as I was looking through the packet again this morning, I realized, David, that some of the things that are in your financial update are kind of in this. So feel free to jump in or correct me if I say something. Firstly, I'd like to also kind of say thank you publicly to Adriana, because she joined me yesterday by Zoom for like an hour on a day that the library is closed to help me, walk through this. And then also, she made a lot of changes based on my suggestions after that meeting, which I'm sure she would have done yesterday on the day that the library was closed. So shout out to her for what she was doing. Really appreciate it. So the first page is just kind of some general comments and updates. We have some 2023 updates. So end of year compliance for 1099s are completed. It says 2023 books are closed. There is a dollar amount there for the total property tax disbursement for that year, over 18 million. And then there's also a notation about the 10 million that was transferred to our CD at JP Morgan. And so just note that the interest rate is 4.41%, and that would be paid at the maturity date, which is toward the end of March. Looks like accumulated interest from our account, 75K. All right. Total operating expenses were 748K and capital was 751. Almost 14 million reimbursement to the city is recorded in the profit and loss report as other business expenses. So when we get to that page, you'll see that there. And we don't have an invoice for that yet. So we don't know, what the specific dollar amount will be, but we're in that neighborhood, right? So for 2024, just some notations on that. There have been 2 payrolls processed through Paylocity that were done well, successfully. Average payroll amount right now is 245K, including benefits and taxes. And I'm sure David can add some additional information on that. Looks like the P card management program has been rolled out. 31 cards have been issued. The budget's been filed with DOLA. And then looks like we have an update about an electric transit cargo van that's being ordered for the library. And that looks like a cost of 58K. So it sounds like we will have a chance to review and approve that purchase when it comes around. Sage Intact is in the testing phase and the go live date is March 1st. And that's important also for our report, because right now we're basically using QuickBooks. And so Adriana's like hand entering all of the data that we're seeing. It's not just a generated report. Okay, so, and there is a posting for a new accounting specialist, and hopefully that person will be hired soon. We'll take a little bit of the weight off of Adriana and her staff, which will be good. Current cash on hand balance as of today, including the CD account, is 16.1 million. And we did have one property tax disbursement in January, which was 486,182. Next page, there is a profit and loss sheet. And so the thing about this is, when we were trying to think about what kind of treasurer report to present to you, I basically went online and looked at the other local libraries to see what they were doing to get a sense of what kind of information is being shared. You may decide that this is too much. You may decide that this is more than enough or adequate. But so hopefully we'll kind of give you some feedback about what kinds of information you want to see. So the profit and loss is basically just the usual stuff. So we have our property tax revenue at the top, then expenses, and noted that so this is from January through December of 2023. So this is not 2024, this is last year. Noted that we have other business expenses as that bottom line item in the expenses category. That is the anticipated repayment to the city. And then we have also the 74,000 in interest is listed there. So, you know, once it does the calculations, then it has net income is 3.3 million. The next page, and jump in with questions at any point. The next page is basically a balance sheet, and this is really more just about assets. So we have our bank account assets, we have accounts receivable. So total assets is at 17.4, and then we have liabilities and equity. And then just notice on that page, we should also have the 13.9, which is in other current liabilities. We also have the Chase credit cards on there. So this is just a way of kind of seeing, like, from a broad perspective, the accounts that currently exist, the library.
So can you just say, like, the credit cards and these numbers, are these like just the principal lead staff folks, or how do you select whose credit cards these are?
I think these are all of them. Is that right? So we're not missing any of them.
Currently, no, there will be more
Yeah.
rolled out as we get new
Yeah.
supervisors and new
Spread out.
project leads.
It's only been recent. I mean,
Yeah.
initially, there were only 4 or 5 of us that had cards.
And so, and just thinking about that
Yeah.
question, like, if we wanted to have further information about how that breaks down, I'm sure we could eventually get there to say, you know, what are these expenses, or how are they being, you know, what are they being used for? That certainly is.
Yeah,
something
yeah,
we could consider.
But
That-
would you then like just sort of decide to like bulk those into, I don't know, just appropriate categories like program staff or administration or something, and not necessarily by credit card numbers or whatever, but just by areas or something, and then it just like sort of bulks together, so you're not having a list of 20
Yeah, no,
numbers or something like
I
that.
think that might be possible. I mean, maybe,
I don't know. Yeah, certainly worth considering.
yeah.
You know, so, you know, so that you'd sort of see them by areas, but not necessarily like tracked by
So the
numbers.
expenses will be broken down or tagged, if you will, with location and then kind of a general label for what it is, like office supplies or electricity bill, that kind of thing.
Maybe it better aligns actually with budget, right? Like, you know, so that's just maybe aligned with like budget line items or something that is just maybe a more simple way of looking at it.
And the budget piece, that's the other part that I wanted to ask all of you is, so I was gonna recommend that we do a budget comparison, like no more than quarterly at a like, you know, we
Yeah.
don't want to be looking at that every month. I feel
Yeah.
like that's excessive. But you know, love to, you feel free to let me know, but
Yeah, I think that's a separate thing from the
Yeah,
treasurer report. Yeah.
right, yeah,
So probably the detail you're looking for would be in the budget analysis. We probably would want to look at like at least quarterly, but look at, you know, the next 3 months, last 3 months, compared budget versus actuals and things like that. Yeah.
yeah. And that's where I think also this is all gonna kind of, you know, we're gonna have to fine tune this as we go. Like, there will be some things that, you know, we don't need to include in the treasurer report that I'm
Right.
presenting today. So this was just kind of like, okay, let's just
Great.
see what other library folks are doing and then, you know, figure out what works for us. Okay,
So question on the credit cards, when we talked at First Bank, they had a very robust e-card management system. Is there anything out of that that could generate the kind of information Benita is
Maybe.
for?
Yeah, we are using that.
Yeah, because it sounded like they were the ones who were really kind of tracking. So I just wanted to lift that up, that resource up, and remind ourselves of it again.
okay. And so just looking at that, like how often would we want to look at that? Like, is that with the budget and not necessarily as part of this report?
What I understood Benita to suggest was that instead of just having a list of credit
Mhm.
cards, we have
The categories.
the categories. So I think that
Right.
would just be in the treasurer's report.
Okay, so like if you look at the profit and loss page, that does have expenses, like, so I think that is where it would fall going forward. Okay, all right,
The assets piece, I guess, doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Well, no, because like,
It's not like we're making,
But
like, we're
you're
not
not
like a bank or like, we're not like engaged in like raising money or
Right, and
making money.
I mean,
Yeah,
also
agree.
I mean, like, we're not gonna depreciate the computer. Well, I don't think we'll depreciate the computer. Like, it's not coming out of like a gap accounting thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, would it just be helpful to just maybe have the profit and loss and not the balance sheet? Maybe?
The balance sheet.
I mean, I think, having what's in the bank accounts is probably,
Okay,
necessary, but
That's a good suggestion.
yeah.
okay. Yeah, and that actually helps
Yeah.
take a little bit of the workload off of
Okay.
everybody. So, okay, so what is in bank accounts? And that actually, that was one of the bullet points on the front page.
Yeah,
So that could be sufficient then.
yeah. I think
Good.
so.
Okay, ooh, all right. So then next couple of pages, if we go, I know we talked a little bit about some of our own expenses that we are incurring as a board. So I thought it would be helpful just to put together a spreadsheet of our legal fees in 2023. So you can see the status of all of those invoices. For 2023, they've all been paid. And then the last page again was also just what are the board expenses? So I had her kind of do an analysis of like how much we spent on food, what are their expenses, and this may not be exhaustive. There may be other things that we missed, but these are just the kinds of things we were thinking about in the moment. So if there are other costs or expenses you want to know more about, we can add them in. For the board. I don't.
It's like 25%, it's pizza.
Well, I feel like that's valuable information. I mean,
Well, I think we,
it's hard work. It's just worth gathering.
Bring out the percentages.
Okay, all right. Here.
So expenses, I mean, this, I can't think of anything.
well, like the auditor,
Like those kinds of things.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
consultants.
Yeah, anything that would be considered like under the category of the board, I think would be good to know. Just, like if we're spending like exhaustive amounts of money on something, like it'd be good to know that.
yeah.
Well, you'll have continuing education, for example.
Right. Right, and we do have some of the Calcon in here on the bottom part, so but I don't know if that's all of it, because I feel like more than 3 of us.
I know there's 3 of us.
I didn't make it.
And
although
Jennifer
they
was
paid for
there
me to
also.
go. So,
The 4 of us.
Yeah,
I,
right, so,
I think the one line covered multiple registrations.
Yeah.
okay, the 7.
Probably reflects how many days, because we went for different days.
Good point. Okay, well, we'll keep fine tuning this, and I look forward to when Adriana doesn't have to hand input everything,
Yeah,
but, yeah, there we go.
that's amazing. Thank you. And David, I know you're speaking about some of this in your director's
Yep.
report. Do you want to just dive into that now and?
It's up to you guys, yeah.
Yeah, while we're talking
for it.
about it. I think
While
that
we're
would
in
be
the
easier.
finance.
Well, mine was, so something that I was talking about with the finance committee, and it came about is when, I don't remember which meeting it was, but a couple of meetings ago, when you talked about what do we do if you have to move money around? And we said, well, we'll pursue whatever the proper process is for doing it, but it made me realize, like, even with only a month, we have a month's worth of data for 2024. And I just want to, it's really, my memo is exactly what I sent to the finance committee. And I just wanted everybody to be fully prepared that year one is really a kind of a gradual stepping up. And a lot of the things that we allocated towards certain budgets, but while Jennifer and I did the best we could, we benchmarked it against a lot of different organizations. We speculated on the cost. We put together actual prices of things. Now is when the rubber hits the road. And so we had scaled some of the pricing for personnel expenses, at least throughout the year, right? So the assumption was not everybody would be hired on January 1. And so we did minor kind of changes, assuming that it was going to take us some time to bring it up. But as you can see, we're not hitting 60% yet. We're just barely over 50% of what we budgeted in a scaled back version. It's probably not for several more months, maybe by the end of the year, that we get to 95% of what we had budgeted for personnel expenses with regard, with benefits and all the other things. And so there are going to be savings across the board with regard to the staffing. The other two major areas are, we put aside $2.5 million for capital for Gun Barrel. We're not, presently pursuing buying a building in Gun Barrel. It's going to be a lease, and it will be a lot less than $2.5 million. So there's, again, money that's going to roll over to a future year expense. And then the third category, really, one that we all felt strongly about, I felt it during the budget time, was taking care of our buildings and the facilities. And so, for just some perspective, we had done quite a lot of analysis with what the city had put into the buildings in the past. We, as a group, agreed to put a lot more into it than that. And in some cases, probably 40% more than they were on average. And then on top of that, we put another $750,000 in the end to begin to address the backlog. Well, I have one facilities person and, we're in the midst of hiring the team, but it's going to take time to get up to it. And then, so if you factor all those things together, by the end of the year, there will be in excess of $1 million, maybe in excess of $2 million, maybe higher, that's not spent in our budget. It's not that it won't be legitimate to put it back into a 2025 budget, which we'll begin talking about in a few months. It's just that it's going to take some time to ramp up. And I wanted to make sure that everybody fully understood that. And then what immediate impact it has is on our amount of money that we're setting aside for investment in the CD, right? So we decided to put 10 million. That was the most conservative version that we had to invest money in a 3-month CD. We're rapidly closing in on that maturity of that 3-month CD within the next month. You'll have to make another decision about how much money we want to put, if we want to do 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, if we want to look at other options. But I just wanted you all to be fully aware of that.
You mentioned something in the staffing piece, David, that I think would be interesting to share with the board. And that is that one of the things that's happening with staffing, as I understood it, is that a lot of the new jobs are being taken by existing library staff, which is great.
That's awesome. It just doesn't get us closer to expending the goal, because then we have another vacancy that lasts for a month for a position that somebody vacated to take a better job. And so we're not hitting those numbers in the strictly mathematical, rational way that Jennifer and I had charted it out. I mean, that was not something we could really factor out, but there has been some really great movement within the organization of people moving up, right? So Maria is one, but there are a bunch of others. So those jobs just create vacancies where they leave. And so then we're having to spend the time to hire for those jobs, which then that's another month of not being an expense. Yes.
I mean, can we post them are we posting them internally first and then,
For some
or
positions,
do you not want to do that? I mean, I guess you like,
If it's strictly a promotional opportunity, is
okay,
published internal,
internally.
but to save time, we publish externally and internal candidates can apply.
Yeah. And then, I mean, could you interview and then fill it and then say, oh, we interviewed this 25 people, this person might be good for this, ask them to interview again for the, or you have to
We have to
repost it again?
apply- Yeah, we
Yeah,
have to
apply.
repost it, or they'd have to
Yeah.
have applied for a posting.
That's the law, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for internal hires, you don't have to repost it. You don't have to post it externally. And now that was just changed on January 1st.
it's been great in the sense in which we've been getting remarkable pools of candidates for every job that we post.
Yeah, it's just more time.
It's where, we fill 2 jobs with internal candidates. There were 4 really good internal candidates that applied for them. And so there will be other opportunities. It's a matter of scaling those through. I can't remember, gosh, today we went over all the jobs that are being posted in the next 2 weeks, and it's mind-boggling again. So the month of March, we'll have an equal number of a bunch of jobs. And so, yeah, Novo's coming. And so that's a bunch of great jobs that I think we'll have to apply for. Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I mean, I don't feel bad about what we speculated the budget would be. I think we did the right thing with what we could, given that we didn't know the cost of the benefits. We didn't know a lot of things. We were originally putting together that 15-year time frame,
Mhm.
but it will be later in the year before we start to hit stride, right? And stride, by which I mean the expenses are matching the income that we have. And at that point, by the beginning of 2025, we'll get all this money again next year. And then I believe the operational capacity, of the organization will be such that we will be able to meet it in a more timely fashion. But the reality is that we will have saved a couple of $1 million this year, which can then in the future go towards another one-time expense. We wouldn't want to expand our annual operating expenses as a result of this, but I think it's reasonable to assume that we will have additional funds to fortify the backlog budget or whatever future capital projects we may have.
And in your report, you mentioned 3 things that may be coming up as expenses this year.
Yeah, there's some, and honestly, I've talked to a ton of people since, and so Nobu is nearing completion. We have an understanding there'll be some cost associated with finishing out that project and things that people wanted. It's not coming into any significant amount of money, so I don't know that I would be back in front of you with any of those. The main library space reconfigurations, remember you approved of this last year as a part of the budget. We put $500,000 into a reconfiguration of the office related space and a couple of public spaces within this main library building to accommodate all the new staff, communications, HR, finance, facilities, all these different groups. And so some other things have come up in the course of that planning. And we're currently under budget. We placed the furniture order last week. There are no walls moving currently. There are some walls going up, but nothing that's going to impact majorly a cost element. And so we'll probably come back with some other things to look to potentially expanding upon that $500,000 that was already approved as a capital need for making this project that much better. And it would probably be improvements that would be visible to the public. So some of the things that we're talking about. And in some cases, stuff that we didn't know going into it. I can't remember the proper name, the lactation room for the public, some study rooms, expansion of a teen area, some things like this. And then,
North building,
sorry,
in the north building, or is that in more than just this? This says north building break area expanded.
yeah, so north building break area here, teen space is obviously on the south building,
Okay,
as would probably the meeting room stuff. And then the last part is that, and this is something that not imminent, but probably by summer we may know, is that Andres, our new facilities manager, we had just assumed that like there's space in the basement, we'll figure it out, but it wasn't very thoughtful, and it's not that the space is bad, it's just the ingress and the egress to the space is not optimal, and you have to get on an elevator. That's a small elevator to get there. And so it's probably not going to work for us a long time. And so we will be looking at potentially leasing some kind of warehouse space that would accommodate the type of workshop related stuff that we would have to do. It wouldn't be a place that we would occupy with offices, but it's more of a workshop space to.
What kind of, I'm just curious, what kind of like work would they do in a space like that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Assembling furniture, fixing things.
Okay.
Yeah,
so-
storage for their equipment.
Yeah.
tools.
Tools, disassembling a gigantic fan and putting it back together with
Okay,
the
yeah,
right new
that's-
motor,
Just trying to picture.
junk
what
like
it
that.
I
Like-
talked with him briefly and he said he asked if he could have the makerspace space back, but that didn't.
Yeah. He thinks that would be perfect.
What about-
Workshop.
I mean, my concern is a little bit with that is just that it's gonna be remote from the other buildings, and do we have to put IT systems in it and all that other stuff, but like, and then and we have to insure it. So I was wondering maybe if the city, if we could, this may be a crazy idea, but do they have any space more centrally located or that we used to use that we might ask to, lease from them or, include in a lease?
I can inquire.
Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but
It does sound crazy.
but
Yeah.
Is there anything like for the gun barrel space? Is there anything there?
There would be, well, within the current gun barrel space, I don't think so. But there are obviously, and Andres and I have talked about proximity, right? And so
yeah,
ideally, it's either on the Broadway or the diagonal corridor, so they could have quick access. His intention with his staff is that they are visiting all the facilities every week, which is not something that we've ever had, and we didn't really know what the plan was. And so,
all right, well, they're
yeah,
probably,
so there's going to be some mobility in that if our staff are going to do checkpoints within each building every week, then there's gonna be some mobility. That wouldn't mean that we would still have people here, right? The day porter staff would reside here. They do travel, they transport stuff for us all the time currently, but they would be more wedded to a building.
I chatted with him just briefly before the meeting here, just asked how it was going, and he said he's looking at things like, even storage spaces as a way to do that. I don't think he's feeling like they need something high tech. It's mainly someplace that they can stage big things.
Right, there's a
as they're
bunch of
coming in
little
and out
warehouses in
tools
North
and-
Boulder too. The vehicle this vehicle, was that for the facilities folks or is that for
We,
like, to transport books or?
so, right, so we had a vehicle with the city, but they took it back. So we are currently renting
Okay,
a van with the intent of purchasing one. Around the kind of green goals, we're looking at an electric vehicle, but that presents other kind of problems because the lead time on getting a Excel charging station is like 10 to 11 months. So we are also looking at, and some of those are partially grant funded. So we are looking at a lot of options in terms of getting a EV charging station that might work here for the vehicle. We are putting 4 EV charging stations at the new North Boulder Library because now it's a requirement for construction. But that's something that we'll have to consider. And I don't know, I think he's, I told him that I thought if we asked the board, they're going to say like, get an electric vehicle and don't bring me this big gas guzzling Ford or whatever, but we
That's not,
didn't.
I mean, 58 grand's really not a bad price for that.
What's that?
The price for the electric vehicle that's in there.
No,
is
it's
not
good.
bad at all.
Seems
It's just
cheap
then
to
there will
me.
be
No, it should
credits.
be even less with their.
but the
Stuff there.
facility staff, do they need a truck or?
They will. So we haul books.
Yeah,
Oh, you mean in addition to the one vehicle? It's
correct.
possible. We may need 2 vehicles.
Like, how are they gonna get between facilities in their own personal vehicles, I guess, and?
Yeah, so they would
Okay,
report to work. I mean, my understanding is they would report to a work location. That could be any one of our 5 buildings. And then we would pay them mileage if they went to another one during the.
okay. I think we'd want to consider some sort of vehicle to transport shelving and stuff around town. Sorry, I was about to.
Yeah, we did. I asked him to go look at a second
Think about
vehicle as well, just an old beater. But we didn't see anything good that was on the market right now. And old beaters cost a lot of money right now. I was thinking like,
Right, yeah,
if we needed to find this, because it is less than what we budgeted for the vehicle.
When you say old, you mean like an old?
Oh, truck or van or whatever you just throw junk into.
well,
We're gonna fix this one, right? So
like, they're going to be moving between buildings on work time and just the liability of them using their personal vehicles, and that gets a little mixed up and stuff like that. Different for you, but yeah. Something to think about.
we'll keep it in mind.
Just a process question about, as you get a better handle on the actual numbers, we're gonna do a mid-year budget review.
Yes.
And then will we vote on mid-year budget adjustments that time?
We haven't got the defined process yet. I'm not sure that you're gonna have to move any money around, but
Okay.
if we do, we will have a process for doing so. Because the budgets, they all seem adequate at present. I can't see that there's one budget that's gonna come short. The facilities budget was where the truck comes out of. The capital improvements which you approved, that it has more than enough money if we were to expand upon the space reconfiguration here, that money's already been allocated to a thing. So we would come to you to say, because it's not gonna be less, it's gonna be more than $30,000.
Mhm.
So we're gonna come to you to say, look, what do you think? But it will be an expansion upon what you approved back in 2023 for the 2024 budget, if we were to talk about item specific things, right?
So it sounded like the main thing you might be looking at is, do you want to put more of this money that we have not expended yet?
To invest, yeah.
Yeah.
And I always like budget to actual to line up as well as possible, but
And I have a call into Chase now, and I'll be reporting that back initially to Sylvia and Jen in the next month about what to do with investments, and then we'll have a proposal for you in March to make a decision as to whether or not we just how much we extend into the next one. June 1 is our first payment to the city. It'll be around $6.5 million. $7 million, let's say. So that amount will come down.
Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, and not to put too fine a point on it, but the reason we really liked the way David had laid out this report was, in a year where there's still a decent amount of public discourse about the mill levy and excess funds and that sort of thing, we now have kind of three pretty solid bullet points to sort of say, like, this is why we will have excess money in our first year. It is not because we are wasting money, but in fact, because we budgeted for buying a building, salaries ramping up, the three bullet points, in case anyone had really specific questions about our use of funds over the course of the year. So just keep the report in your back pocket, because we found it incredibly useful for that reason.
So to build on that, the talking points that Kara did for the budget and you did for investments are in that, one of the folders that I showed you last week in the SharePoint, the general folder. Maybe it would be good to put these talking points in there as well, so that when people get questions about the budget, they know they're there. I know it was incredibly helpful for me when I did the response to John Taylor. I could just go to the talking points we had all reviewed and agreed on and pull from those. So David, why don't you and I talk about how best to put in there, because I can show you where those are. And again, that folder is for you guys to do with as you wish. I'm just trying to get things in there to get you started.
I don't want to create unnecessary work, but I do like to see a balance sheet periodically.
Okay.
Not to be,
Okay.
and do we have aren't the books a big asset? Is that not, do you not put that into a library balance sheet or?
We would, so when you were talking, I mean, I don't know that we're able to depreciate assets, right? So
So that's my question is like,
I think it's a question.
how are you gonna create the asset portion? And it may not give you an accurate picture of the financial health because of the way we don't have all our assets. Like, we'll buy a truck, okay, we depreciate that over 3 years or whatever, but like, as a public entity, the balance sheet makes a little less sense than like as a business,
Yeah.
but maybe not. I don't know.
Right, but it seems that materials are a huge asset of the organization.
And the city never did, right? So, but in the libraries I've worked at prior to coming to the city, we did value that assets. And so it depends upon what you guys want to do, right? It's a $1.6 million expense or slightly more each year. The depreciation on them is about 3 to 4 years. And so it is a significant asset that we hold. Maybe the one that's probably top of mind for 90% of the public.
I think so.
And so it may be worth our time to do it. And there are relatively easy formulas that you can attach to it.
Good point.
What did the school district do? I mean, did they have all the buildings? And,
yeah.
Oh, they did. Okay.
But they own those buildings.
Yeah, we.
No, but I mean, as an asset, but I mean, like,
But yeah, they're.
they had a whole balance sheet that listed all the assets and. Yeah.
So then to kind of go back to what you were suggesting, so should we do the balance sheet like quarterly? Is that?
My preference, but if people want to do it mid-year only, I could live with that, but.
The quarterly's fine.
Quarterly, okay, so.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be easier when,
I think it will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the format of the budget, Sam, would probably be a lot better than the profit and loss and balance, like, in my mind, when we review the budget with how I'm used to doing it is by 12 periods in a year, and we're looking at monthly spend and monthly, expenses and budgeted versus actual. That I think is going to be much more informative to the health of our.
Yeah.
Of our.
I like budget versus actual,
Yeah.
I like this P&L, I like seeing this.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
No, I do too. It's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we, I'll tentatively promise that we'll bring that back in May then, because I think that's a reasonable expectation, given that Sage will have kind of been in play. Well, that'll give us some time to enter in all the data, because we'll have to enter in all the data from Sage.
And that actually matches up with Ariana. We talked about that a little bit, and she thought that was a question I had. It sounded like May was probably the best to have like more accurate data as opposed to having a report too soon and
Right.
not having accurate data, so.
I'd like to suggest that when you do that, that you create a space on the trustees website to post those regularly. I know when we were way back when, first starting this journey towards a library district, I saw that a lot of districts would post their monthly profit and loss, which I thought was a really nice piece. So, think about the best way to do that. I don't need to do it monthly, but
Right.
if you're doing it quarterly, probably something that's up
Sure,
there, I think
and-
would be really helpful.
And that's how I was able to compare with what other libraries were doing, was seeing that they had posted them,
Yeah.
so.
I also like the way this director's report is laid out, just because a lot of these issues you talk, but it's hard, to listen and take notes, and I like this.
Okay, great. Anything else on the treasurer's report and assorted others? Okay, library policy review, the Cora policy.
Yes, so many thanks to Elizabeth Dower for preparing this. I got to hit the easy button this month, thankfully, because I've been embroiled in payroll issues for the last couple months. So she prepared this resolution and also the policy. I added a couple of things. I added in contact the library director and our address, and then I added the third bullet point under all requests must contain. I confirmed, so they include their contact information. And then I confirmed with Lisa Holmberg, who's our IT applications administrator, that we could put this online as a form, a fillable form that people could fill it out, or they could submit it in writing and mail it in to us. So there'll be two options for them to submit these requests.
And then the one question that I had was then the things like the record retention schedules and all that, is that stuff you guys are handling at the administrative level? Because there's an infrastructure underneath this, right?
Yeah, we haven't started that yet. Very detailed, but we'll start working on that after this meeting,
Okay.
get ready for the next month or two.
And is that something that requires board approval? I mean, it seems to me it's the level of.
It just has to be adopted. There's a state archive entity that keeps all these records, and they promulgate these different regulations.
Okay.
So if the board just adopts that when we're done, it's an approval, but
Okay,
that's that.
and I think you said that the record retention schedules are basically spelled out in there, so it's just a matter of then figuring out what that is and mapping it however you guys are keeping records. Right?
Yeah. The hard part is figuring out how the library records
Yeah.
match up with the state archive
Yeah.
records, but we've got all that.
I don't think you guys had to deal with that before because the city was doing all of that stuff through their own records management system. So, great. Sylvia, you have-
Oh, mine was just a little question. I was curious about in the fees and costs, like how we arrived at the 33.58 per hour past 1 hour.
That came in the draft, so I'm not sure how she
Okay,
landed on that.
Most of our districts are around $35.
are they? Okay,
From
I
okay,
think the city is $35,
okay.
county or whatever.
It just seemed like not a round number to me, so it jumped out, so.
and we're being friendlier than the county because the county charges for the first hour. Yes.
Best deal in town.
There you go.
You can also just get any of the materials on the shelves for free by checking.
And I guess that was my question, is what kind of core requests do libraries get?
We could get them like emails between trustees if we had an incident,
Right.
like, what did we say?
You
We
could
had
get
one
with-
last week
So
We did?
on the personnel matter.
Okay, but like other than like trustee business kinds of stuff, do libraries typically get? Because like you can't request like patron records, you can't request.
Oh, but cost associated with remediation of the bathrooms because of meth contamination. It's a good example of something that they would request. And then every email that transpired between the board and the director regarding methamphetamine, like that's the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those were all requested during the course of.
And we've had patrons
remediation.
request security footage and that sort of thing. It was denied, but that's uncommon.
A couple times my texts were also included in Cora when I was on the school board. Is that a thing for my text messages?
If they,
Yeah.
they relate to board business, yeah.
Putting that out there.
Which is why you now have your board email addresses.
Any other questions about this? I think we do have revised signature lines for this, for us, Kim.
Yep.
Great.
You all need to vote on it?
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
we do.
Yeah, yes, we do.
There is a
We get a
proposed,
motion to approve the Open Records Act resolution and policy.
A motion to approve the open records request policy.
Okay,
I'll second.
alrighty. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, great. All right, volunteer services impacts in 2023.
Well, we just included this as a report. Sophia was here last meeting. And she does this for me and I was like, the board's gonna love to see this. And so she turned it in, I think a month ago. If you've been in my office, you've seen that I've in the past posted like these things on my walls because I'm impressed. Like I truly, you guys are all volunteers. That's an amazing thing, but it's not just you, it's a bunch of other people contributing a bunch of other time. And, you know, for the entirety of the time with the city volunteers, I used to tell the city that volunteers constituted about 15% of my workforce. And that's still true, right? To the day. I mean, as we ramp up staffing, I don't know that number will continue to increase at the same rate that staffing levels increase. But I think, you know, if you took 516,000 and put it into the projected amount that we had for this year, it's well over 15%. So I can't say enough. And then I love the way she does the report each year. So you can see like in the right hand, the page, page 9, it talks a little bit about the programs. And this is the kind of stuff you would see if you wanted to come to the library to volunteer. Like I want to volunteer to help with donating materials and use books. And then you can go in and see like, wow, 25 volunteers, you know, diverted 71,000 pounds of books away from the landfill. It doesn't say that they raised about $40,000 for the library, but you know, it's just every single one. It's a great story to tell. And it's a remarkable effort by our community. It's just tons of people come out to do a lot of different stuff. And we couldn't run and we won't be able to run in 2 years or 3 years without them. So it's such a critical part of what we do. So, next time you see a volunteer, don't thank you guys are ones. I thank you very much. I'm terrible about showing appreciation. Sometimes I thank you guys, but when you see a volunteer, let them know how much it means.
I mean, I love that it has 630 hours for just the Board of Trustees.
They're remarkable, right?
Well, that's like 630 hours. Is
Yeah.
a lot of hours.
Divide 7 by 6.
Mhm. That's
I love this. And I also learned a lot. Like I know we had 75 people delivering home to homes for books. That's fantastic. Yeah.
That program expanded dramatically during the pandemic and it hasn't scaled back. I think we were above that for a little while, but it not significantly scaled back. And people have, in some cases, 2 or 3 homes that they deliver books to. And they form a relationship. That used to be a long time ago. It was a staff thing. Staff member did it. That I don't know when that stopped, but we'd been using volunteers. They get to know the person, what books they like, show up, have dinner, glass of wine. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I also think this is great. And the one comment I would have, and this is actually a carryover from when I was on library commission, is Maria, we hope that you'll be able to do something where you give these kinds of wonderful reports more presence. You know, staff does such a great job in framing this information and putting it out there in a way the community can understand.
Good evening. The library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
Buenas noches. La biblioteca se cerrará en 15 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
Is that the conjunctive? No. Subjunctive up there? So the quarterly reports are the other ones that they always, I mean, Amy does such a great job with visuals and all those kinds of things. And I've seen other libraries that we've been kind of stuck in the city's idea of how to do a website for a very long time. So when you get to the website push, I hope there's a way to make these sorts of things more prominent as some of the other libraries do, because this is the sort of information people want. And, you see a little click that says, go to the quarterly report. And yeah, so anyway, this is wonderful. I'd just love to showcase it more.
It's also just information that we need to get quickly, if we're asked or, so it's always nice if it's on the website somewhere that we can access it.
Yeah, agreed.
David, can you say again what the new platform that we're using now for volunteer?
Yeah,
Can
the name of it is
Give Pulse?
Give Pulse.
And what's different about it? What's enhanced about it?
I think it's easier to use for the patron, and that was one of the reasons we look at it. It's like a fraction of the cost. And then as we moved away from the city, knowing how costly and how much most volunteers didn't like the system we started looking at other ones. And so we opted to choose the one that the university does in hopes of more shared collaboration. And then we found out subsequently the city is going to move to Give Pulse in 2025 as well. So the program that we had was great. It was one of those ones that kind of came up under a directive from a city manager that we need to have a program, and then we put something together really quick. We wound up getting some certification because of it, and that was awesome and wonderful. And certainly volunteers did use it, but we never had people say like, we love this program. And so I'm not hoping that people love it, but the interface that we certainly have on the web now that Sophia has helped build out is just, it's got so many more opportunities. We're getting better support from the company that runs it. And, when you go to look for opportunities, you can see like, yeah, I want to help people with the love of reading. And that seems more compelling than like having to sift through a whole 1,000 different things for finding a volunteer opportunity. She breaks them up into like, this is a one-off kind of thing where you can come and spend your day. Or things that require long-term commitment. And I think that's the right way to do it. That's what people are kind of looking for. We're approached by groups and companies all the time that says like, we want to bring our whole company down there to do something. And I'm thinking like dusting. But that's not one of the opportunities. She has them broken in those two ways so that people have an opportunity if they're looking for a long-term commitment, and then other things they can try out to see if they like it before they jump in with both feet.
Sophia was here last time and walked us through that and said she's happy to sit down with anybody who wants to, because we're now putting our hours in directly into that too. And it does seem like a nice system. Jen?
Forgive me for missing the presentation last week. Did Sophia talk at all about kind of what the retention rate was of active library volunteers from the city's website over to the Give Pulse? Have we kind of been able to
No, she
figure
did,
out
yeah.
if people are,
Yeah, it was 100%, I think. Yeah.
Everything was transferred over, she said.
oh, okay, so everyone is using
Yeah,
it.
everyone's in the new system. Yeah.
They're in the new system. I don't, whether they've re-volunteered, but the system's really easy. Like you can go in there and it says, here's what's my 10 minutes on it. That's what I saw. Like, oh, you can see all the opportunities that are available this week or next week. It's pretty easy system.
Putting your hours in is really easy too, which was not the case before. So.
Long-term volunteer retention is a good question, and I don't know the answer to it, but I can ask Sophia.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Anything else on volunteers? Okay, David, did you have anything else in your director update?
I did. I have a couple things, and since I get to sneak most of my reporting to others, I have another issue that I just want to bring up with you also.
The library will be closing in 10 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
La biblioteca se cerrará en 10 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
So I appreciate the comment on you like the way the report looks. I'm sure that was Celia. It made it look nice. I have no idea.
Well, I just mean that, like the things you're going to talk about are
Okay, so the flow was what you were. So I didn't, like, the cyber insurance update is more than just cyber insurance update. I think somebody asked a question about how much it costs. That is the cost. And actually, I went back to, we do have $1 million in liability coverage for business interruption. So that would be, it's within the first 8 to 24 hours or whatever, if business is interrupted, like what cost we incur as a result of that. If the network goes down, do we have to rent a space to store books that are being returned or whatever else like that? So that is covered, and it's in the 5,581.57. Secondarily, we have received a quote for flood insurance, and it's waiting on my desk. It does include all of the HVAC types of equipment that are HVAC, boilers, all of those things that are in the basements of the rentals in the main library. It is limited to $5 million cap. And I'm hoping the cost is $50,000. I'm hoping that you will say, go forward, we need it. It's the last thing that we need for the IGA to finalize that, lock in that insurance. I don't have a second bid. We did not. They shopped for since whenever this first came up. And this is a separate company did bid on Carnegie in the initial time around. So we have coverage already for Carnegie. This coverage will be for the main library and for the Table Mesa George Reynolds Library.
Is it 5 million each, or is it 5 million total? Okay.
5 million each instance. Johnny had asked for clarification about what happens if the building is destroyed. Can we even rebuild? I don't have an answer to that question. I mean, the policy, as I read it, is we can put in 50% of the overall value of the building, but it doesn't set a time frame on it. So I assume we could put in 50% every year until we built it back. I asked the city planning department for clarification on what would happen if the buildings were, there was some form of catastrophic loss, specifically down here in Reynolds.
No, they, the makerspace people.
Did you want to mention the First Amendment thing we were talking about?
Yeah, I'd like you all to nod your heads and say like it's okay to go ahead for flood insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nod. Jennifer, you nodding?
I'm nodding vigorously.
And I realize you, like 2 or 3 months ago, you authorized me to do it, but I feel weird about like locking in insurance until you say yes on every single one. And I mean,
Yes, on the flood insurance.
Yeah.
Did I just have like a whole different impression that the cyber insurance was going to be much more?
I thought so too, Benita. I
I
thought
didn't, because I guess I thought, like, just based on what you had said, that it was gonna be like so much more than what I've seen here.
This was the lowest bid that we got and the one that the insurance broker that we had recommended. And I was shocked that it covered.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, annual costs. And this also
I
covers.
just wanted like to say sure I wasn't dreaming, because I thought
Yeah.
it seems going to
You know,
be
it-
something.
We're not open to a lot of liability there, right? So the patron records, which are the thing which is the most, it's not under this, right? It is under a separate policy through our arrangement with the ILS system, the Marmot. So we have a contract with a third-party vendor who runs the patron database as well as the book database. The book database records, they could be lost. We could just buy them all again, but the patron database is where the risk would occur, wherein if you're having to pay for each one of those people to get credit checks or whatever for the next 20 years, that's where the expense would come in. But that's not what this is covering. This is covering strictly library-related business, library-related servers. And so, yeah, I was surprised how cheap it was.
We're spending about $175,000 on insurance for all the different annual. I mean, I think we budgeted like 205.
25. Yeah. That's what we thought, but then we were just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, you're about right.
So the last issue I wanted to bring up, just for the future, we'll probably bring a policy forward to you. And I know Kim is an expert in this area, and Johnny said that it was mentioned at the Cal things as well, CalCon as well. And I'm familiar with it from the past, but
The library will be closing in 5 minutes. Please complete your library business and exit the building. Thank you.
La biblioteca se cerrará en 5 minutos. Por favor, concluya sus actividades en la biblioteca y salga del edificio. Gracias.
We haven't put the work order in to turn off the.
no. I refuse. They want you to know when the building's closed.
Okay.
No, so I'm sure you've all heard of First Amendment auditors. If you have not, they are people who go around with videotape and try to get people in public settings to do odd stuff so they can upload it to YouTube and get a bunch of hits and get advertising money, and they threaten to sue and all this other nonsense. And so, the buildings, as we are a public building. The rule on that is really we allow them to do whatever they want. If the space is not marked staff only, anybody can go into it and they can talk to anybody that's in there. So long as they're not disrupting the ordinary flow of library business, they're welcome to do it. And the last time we had them around, the staff was so great. They went into technical services and interviewed the head of cataloging, and they were so polite and offered to show them other areas. It was great. It was a perfect example of exactly what you're supposed to do. It got no hits on YouTube. The incident we had this past week, and I think that it will accelerate. If I remember right, the last one was during an election year as well. We'll see more of it. So there was, unfortunately, a First Amendment auditor who kind of had a misunderstanding of the role of freedom of speech within a public building. And so we are a public building, but not a public forum, right? So most interiors of government space are not public forums. You cannot exercise your freedom of speech in the manner in which you choose. We have the right, and libraries and almost all government buildings reserve the right to control the time, manner, and place of any form of public expression. So this guy confused or conflated or intentionally muddled the grounds between public building and a public forum, had staff, scrambling. In the end, it was a disruption. He was asked to leave the library. Now, of course, he's threatening to sue us. But staff didn't do anything really wrong other than, it's unfortunate that they were. But when you're faced with it, it's oftentimes difficult to say, yeah, we're a public building, but we're not a public forum. And you can't carry a sign in here that says whatever it is your sign is saying. It's the same. The same would be true whether they were advertising free hot dogs at Mustard's Last Stand, to vote for a candidate, to love Jesus, to do whatever it is. In this case, it was extremely derogatory language directed towards women, and it got a rise out of some people. And he feels as if he was asked to leave because of the content of his sign. He was not asked to leave for the content of the sign. He was asked to leave because it was a disruption. But we did not. I thought, because I talked to the city about this 10 years ago, to putting in a time, manner, and place restrictions in our policies. But when I went to find them, I did not find any. And so I think we'll be bringing you back something in the next, month or so around time, manner, and place restrictions, around public forum. In order for this building or any of this space to be a public forum, you, as a governing body, would have to designate it such. You've not done so. The city never has done so. The Supreme Court understands that a lot of places like sidewalks, streets, parks have historically been public forums, but that law does not extend to anywhere inside of a public or government building of any kind that I'm aware of. And so we are not, we're on good grounds, but we probably need to document it.
David, how does that impact the Canyon Theater pilot?
Well, it's great because in the time, place, and time, space, and manner restrictions, the best thing you can have is an alternative, right? So if somebody comes up and they say, I want to come into your library, we'll just tell them, book the Canyon Theater and you can do it all you want from a stage and invite all your friends. But we do not have to allow for that to just happen either on the walkways entering into the library or certainly not inside the library. It's just they're unimpeded. So someone could book the Canyon Theater and talk about whatever they want.
Okay, but the time and space provision would sort of include that the Canyon Theater was a sort of separately considered space that could be used for something like that, but only if it's reserved and something to that effect.
Yeah, you would have to reserve the space, and I think we made clear in there that we don't restrict what types of activities occur in there, other than you can't do anything illegal, you can't set a fire.
Attention, the library is now closed.
You can't break.
Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Atención, la biblioteca está cerrada. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy y esperamos verlos nuevamente.
So one of the things I took away from the CalCon discussion was that part of the place distinction is identifying the office spaces and the space where staff does their work as not part of a public building. And often that's where these First Amendment auditors want to do is go back in the back and disrupt things. So one piece would be defining what is public and what is not, and then putting time and manner around that restrictions. Beth did a really nice presentation on that.
Before the pandemic, I ordered signs and I have them in my office. We just haven't in.
That's great.
Staff only, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
So-
need to have the policy to back up. That's what was emphasized. And we need to adopt them before there's an issue, because if we try to do it when there's an issue, then we get
Right.
complaints that it's about content.
In the Canyon Theater, do we talk about policy? I can't remember what kind of signage they're allowed to put up. They're not allowed signage. Okay,
They don't-
that's what I thought we addressed it, but
On a digital sign that was gonna say what's happening in the theater,
Theater,
but
but-
we don't even have that yet, but we will.
Yeah.
So we'll have a digital sign. We don't, I mean, it's been a sore spot for me and I think for the commissions for years is that we don't have and maybe it's to our benefit. We don't put signs around anywhere in the library except for the bulletin board.
Yeah.
And we don't really have a robust way of indicating to the public what other activities are happening in our library because our
I think
meeting rooms are free and open to the public. I think it's just a list
you have to
daily.
put
Yeah.
what you're gonna meet about or.
When you sign up for your meeting room, if you say it's the Donald Duck Association, then that's what's gonna show up on our board that day. It's like, the Flatirons room is the Donald Duck Association from 2 to 4. Yeah, that's all we show.
So if anyone is interested in reading more about this, then CalCon folder has a good outline and some good notes about this whole piece. And I'm glad we're bringing that up. I'm sorry we don't have it. And then related to that, I don't know how many of you saw in the Sunday paper, in both the Post and the Camera, there was an article about organized trolling of city councils that's happening now on their remote platforms. And there were a number of things that city councils were doing to try to protect themselves from disruption. You can't regulate the content, but you can try and minimize the disruption. And I took a look at the rules we adopted for public participation, and we don't really have any of those. And I'm thinking maybe we should revisit those and look at adding, some of it is simple things like requiring people to give us their name and address and email. We have a sort of suggestion that you sign in now, but nothing about online. So I think that's a very easy one. I think one city council was requiring that people have their camera on when they speak, which I thought was at least worth discussing. I don't know what I think about that. And Kim, I don't know if it's possible for us to restrict our public participation to people who live within the district.
No.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want to put a camera requirement on, just because there are people who don't have. a camera.
Yeah, although if they're on Zoom, they're
But
likely.
you can phone into Zoom.
Yeah,
Like, you can dial in on a phone.
yeah.
So then you wouldn't have a camera.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm not, I'm saying that I think we need to bring this and talk about it. So if you have other thoughts, and Kim, if there's other ways you think that we should be, sort of tightening that up. Again, trying to do it before we see patrolling. The context of the newspaper articles was hate speech, but we've seen all sorts of things with libraries and organizations, so anyway, we can work on something and try and schedule that and bring that back.
But in terms of these First Amendment auditors, we're having a model policy come to us soon.
I think probably with next month, we'll bring you something and it would be both for the First Amendment auditors and also for just, clarification around signage within the library. We're a limited public forum. All government buildings, as far as I know, are limited public forums and you are not. We support freedom of speech and you can go out on the sidewalk or up the Canyon meeting room and exercise it.
And I think it'd be nice if we could bring this back at the same time, so we were just doing it as a package.
it came out
If you
together.
guys had
Yep.
some input on that, that'd be really helpful. Okay. So other trustee matters, we need to set our retreat date for March 2nd, confirm that we are having our special meeting on March 5th. That would be our regular special meeting.
I'm so sorry, our regular special meeting as opposed to our regular meeting?
Regular, yeah, regular.
A special regular.
I
a
mean,
regular
like,
special.
it matters to me because I have to give this report at the regular, so like. So our special meeting is the first meeting that will be the first meeting of the month and our regular will be the later one?
Correct,
Okay,
correct. I should say our already scheduled meeting on March
okay,
5th,
perfect.
which we had a conversation about whether we were going to have or not. Nobody seems terribly needing to make that go away, so I'm assuming we're going forward with the March 5th meeting.
And then the 12th and the 19th?
I thought we were getting rid of the fifth.
Yeah, I thought we.
Yeah, we didn't ever say, so
Oh,
that's why
okay.
that's why I'm asking.
I would be,
I thought we were skipping and then,
We can definitely get rid of some of them.
Yeah.
I won't be able to attend. I won't be able to attend on the 5th. I'll be at a funeral. So, I will not
Sorry,
be able to attend that meeting.
I'm sorry, Jen.
That's okay. Thank you.
So I mean, yeah, we could do the 12th and the 19th instead.
Yeah, so in that case, then all we need to do tonight is set our retreat date for March 2nd, and we can just take the 5th off of our advanced planning agenda. So do we need a motion to do that, Kim?
You can do it by consensus.
Okay.
Sounds like you already have
We have
it.
consensus. Okay, great. And then you saw the contact form
Don't need
about
that.
Carnegie. Are there any other trustee
It was
matters?
a nice reply.
Oh, thanks.
Well, I came here Sunday in part for the anniversary of the building 61 and then stood at the door with a sad face because it apparently had been canceled.
What's this?
I had seen there was an anniversary celebration for building 61. Did I get that completely wrong? Someone on the staff said it had been canceled. Okay.
I thought I saw something on
Oh,
Instagram.
you can share some light.
If I may,
Yes, please.
you're right, it had been scheduled and their staffing still is not ramped up enough to swing a special event. So with apologies, they said next birthday will be fully staffed.
I'll be there. I wanted to celebrate.
I did too.
Yeah, the party hat on.
So I made myself.
Seeing Chris, I actually just thought of something else. So in the past, in the commission, we would have as part of our agenda, our monthly meeting, we would have an update about the foundation. And I think we should probably visit that and start doing that again.
Did we do that with trustee matters, and then foundation? updates?
Yeah, however, yeah.
Okay, great.
Any announcements?
maybe
I guess that-
the foundation trustee folks.
Yeah, I mean, usually in the past, it was the liaisons who would just
Liaison.
give a little update about like.
this was in the commission you're talking.
Right.
about. Okay,
right,
thank you.
Right. So it was a good practice because, we should pay attention to what's happening at the foundation.
Great
Yeah, we
suggestion.
did mention the foundation, Chris, and the trustee Q&A.
Mhm.
That's part of our bylaws.
Foundation does have a big announcement.
Yeah.
Is it public? It is. I've heard it in multiple public forums, I think.
You about the gala?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
Okay,
please.
yeah, no, this will be an announcement tomorrow. So it's the 50th anniversary of the Boulder Library Foundation this year, and we're going to have a big gala on the south side of the library, but not to bury the headline any longer. Bonnie Garmis, the author of Lessons in Chemistry, is coming from England, and she will be our headliner at that event. And so tomorrow, sponsor table sales will begin. Individual tickets will go on sale in May. But if you don't have FOMO and you want to make sure that you're going to be there, round up your friends and buy a table starting tomorrow. It'll be in the newsletter from the foundation that'll go out tomorrow.
What's the date, Chris?
September 26th. It's a Thursday night. And we've gotten special permission to close the library early. 5:30 to 6:30 will be a special VIP author reception for sponsors. And then 6:30 to 8 o'clock will be the general reception. There'll be great food, beverages, all varieties on the ground floor of the south end. And then from 8 to 9:30 will be a program celebrating 50 years and all the accomplishments of the library and the foundation. And will be anchored by Bonnie Garmisch speaking. She was the #1 digital checkout last year.
Not just here, but.
Not just here, yeah.
I
Way to
personally
go,
checked
Chris. Congrats.
that. I was in
Oh, exciting.
last year.
Awesome.
Kim, do you have anything for your legal counsel update?
I don't have anything.
Oh, sorry, Maybe you have something.
So just to follow up on the applicants for the commission, and it was a question I was asking about, and we probably need to figure out the answer, but it's the applicant pool and making the applications public. And I'm not sure how we do that in this process. Because typically the city has
Yeah.
made the applicant public, the pool public. And I'm not sure.
Yeah, and
who
we would,
says
you
yes.
guys, I thought, instructed us to do so once the process was
Closes?
in place. So like, once it's closed, we'll do it. I should think by the first week of March.
Okay.
We'll put it in a PDF like the city does.
Well, we're gonna have to send it to the trustee, the committees, people anyway.
Right, so we would then change that. Okay, so now we know.
And when we do that, do we redact personal information? Because they usually give like phone numbers and email addresses.
City has never done so.
Never
and-
done that, okay.
I mean, and I could if that's what you want me to do.
But we didn't, like when we had our,
I don't
No.
remember. don't
no, I
remember.
think it's all there.
No, it's all there.
Is it? Okay.
You apply for the commission
Yeah.
and when you apply for a volunteer governing board, like they put your,
So it's
they
what
ask for your name and your
your
address.
answer
phone
is.
number,
those-
and
yeah,
an email address. So that's all published in the document.
Okay,
Are we risking something there? Your face looks concerned. Like, I think that's what the city's done.
yeah. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had that in place. That was it. Thank you.
Question for Celia, but I think she stepped out. I was just curious if we all turned in our like documents, like our
I have not.
assessments and our affirmations and just.
Guess we gotta print those out.
Question.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not in charge of it.
No, I know.
but
Where can
just,
I,
like, trying to make
where
sure
can I
we-
get I could just do it,
You
come
can
in.
print 10 free pages at your local public library.
I could come in and print it.
We're attached to
Because you
something.
hang out
yeah.
here, you said.
I do. I
So,
just walk into David's office and say,
You can also just sign it electronically, and email. I did ask if we could do that and then I never did it, but.
I'm curious how many of us have submitted like our assessments and our like disclosure of conflicts of interest and all that? Yeah, all that stuff.
I've only got 2.
will you email them out, just the attach, or have you already emailed them out?
They were
The,
included in the package.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
That's fine.
I'll have to go find it. All right, I'll go back and find it in the packets.
Okay. So you two are the two?
No, I
No.
was saying. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I think it's John. Probably the governance committee.
No, it is. It totally is. Like, no, that's hilarious. We
It's
knew what it said. We knew all the things that were asked, so.
Are you Catholic? Or did you go to a Catholic
No,
school?
Lutheran.
Lutheran, okay.
Worse.
Follow the rules.
Yes. And you don't even have the same state of being.
That's right.
It's hilarious.
Okay, Kim, now, do you have anything for your?
Everything that was reported on
Sorry,
in the
one-
report
one-
is done.
Sorry, Jen.
I'm sorry. One more thing. Has everyone filled out the board self-evaluation? Did you all talk about that last week?
Yeah, that was.
Yes.
part of my-
Asking if it's too.
I said, no, I sent I sent it back with the link, yeah.
Okay, I'll have it to you in the morning.
Reminder to do that.
I think all the trustees have because I think I was the last one. So.
Oh, okay.
You and Sam were busy doing it after the meeting.
Yes.
I use this.
I will send
data,
it up.
but
I will send a packet next week for the retreat.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, if Kim has nothing to share with us, I think that's it. We can adjourn. Kim, I think you have a couple of signature pages for us.
So David, you will give us a packet with all of the the treat stuff in it sometime next week.
Hi, everybody.
Bye, Jen. Sorry about your loss.
Because I'd like to have
Thank you.
copies of them, like, or scan, have a scan copy of them
Okay.
for my,
Your
like,
records.
reference.
Yeah.
like, in case the question comes up.
David, do you need a ride home?
No, Asia
There we go.